This video is sponsored by Squarespace, the all-in-one platform to build your brand online. Puerto Rico is a Caribbean island and U.S. territory located between the Dominican Republic and the U.S. Virgin Islands. I got to spend a week in this beautiful place with 3 friends, and I'm so excited to share all of my tips with you. We're going to talk about the best beaches, how to get around, fun activities, and of course, food. So let's get into it. Puerto Rico isn't huge, but it is substantial, especially if you want to see lots of different parts of the island. So I would highly recommend getting a rental car so you can have the freedom to visit the areas that interest you the most. If you're flying into SJU, all the rental car companies are together at the airport, and I personally like booking national rental cars because you don't have to check in at the desk. You can just pick your car and go. When you're booking your car, you'll want to just double check that you have 4-wheel drive. I do think most or all rental cars there should, because the roads in Puerto Rico can be a bit rough at times. All right, now that we got the getting around part out of the way, let's talk about what to do. And I'm going to start with my #1 recommended place to go, which is actually not on the main island, but a smaller island called Culebra, specifically Flamenco Beach. We're at Flamenco Beach now on Culebra, and we came here today with a tour group, so we got to do some snorkeling in the morning, and then now we just get a few hours at this amazing beach. This is definitely my favorite beach so far. I honestly would have stayed for a night or two just to go to Flamenco Beach again. The day trip that we booked cost us $175 per person and included transportation from San Juan to Spiga. That included tickets for the ferry itself. They gave us some snacks and water and juice. We had a little snorkeling excursion, including the snorkeling gear, and they also provided us with some beach chairs when we were at Flamenco Beach. Our tour guides, John and Tito, were so friendly and accommodating, and we had a perfect day. We got to see a stingray while we were snorkeling. Unfortunately, we didn't see any turtles, but we did see a lot of cool marine life, and we just had perfect weather at Flamenco Beach.
This is perfection because it's not too cold, it's not too warm, the waves are very gentle, the sand is freaking soft, and it's like the best beach I've ever been to.
They do say in the tour description that travel to Flamenco Beach is weather permitting, and they might switch the itinerary around, go to a different beach. So we were just very, very lucky and happy that the weather was amazing for our trip. All 4 of us agreed that Flamenco Beach was our favorite part of the trip. It has this unreal entrance lined with palm trees, super soft sand, and warm, clear waters that are calm, but still have some fun waves to ride here and there. We even had some delicious pina coladas and burgers from a food stand right by the beach.
A must-do in Puerto Rico. Flamenco Beach.
So Flamenco Beach on Culebra was our favorite beach, but we also checked out one beach on the main island. This was a bit more similar to beaches I'm used to in California, since it was big and not secluded like Flamenco Beach, but it was also so much cleaner and warmer.
It's so warm!
It's so nice. Overall, we had a great time at this beach, relaxing, eating hot dogs, drinking pina coladas, and enjoying the water. While we're on the topic of islands and beaches, we also visited Vieques, which is another smaller island that is part of Puerto Rico. We went to Vieques for one night to experience bioluminescent kayaking at Mosquito Bay, which is the brightest bio bay in Puerto Rico and actually in the world. To get to Vieques, we drove to the same ferry station that we went to for our Culebra day trip, but this time we, of course, went to Vieques Island instead of Culebra. Now, you're not allowed to bring your rental car from the main island onto Vieques, so we parked by the ferry station, which I believe was about $25 to $30 for the night. And once we got to Vieques, we grabbed a taxi at the station. We quickly learned why you can't bring your rental cars, because Vieques, as our taxi driver put it, is the wild, wild west. Not only are the roads bumpy to say the least, but the island has about 2,000 wild horses just roaming about, which is almost 1 horse for every 4 people. Now let's get into the reason why we went to Vieques in the first place, which was the Bio Bay kayaking. We booked a tour that cost $60 per person, and it lasted a couple of hours, including the drive to and from the Bio Bay. It was definitely a cool experience to see the plankton glowing in the bay and under our clear bottom kayaks. However, it was a journey to get there. We first got onto a small school bus and were taken through the bumpiest road. It felt like we were on the Indiana Jones ride at Disneyland. Then we were instructed to take off our shoes and socks because we'd be wading through some decomposing leaves and mud to get to our kayaks.
Oh my gosh!
I definitely don't regret the experience because bioluminescence is not something you see all the time, but I just wish I had been a little more prepared with clothes that I don't mind getting dirty. I also would have brought some cheap flip-flops or shower shoes to wear instead of trying to put my dirty feet back into my sneakers. If you would rather not stay overnight on Vieques, because that in itself, is a big undertaking, then you can maybe check out some of the other bio bays on the main island. There is Laguna Grande in Fajardo, which is about an hour and a half from San Juan, as well as La Parguera in Lajas, which is about 2.5 hours from San Juan. What we really did love in Vieques were our meals. So after we spent an afternoon lounging on the beach the day that we got there, we had dinner at Duffy's, which has delicious fish tacos, and if you're able to get a table outside, you can see the water and the sunset. And on our last morning, we had breakfast at Christie's, which has some of the fluffiest pancakes I've ever seen. Definitely recommend. Both of these were near our hotel called Casa de Tortuga, so they were just super convenient for us to check out, and luckily they were delicious. We've talked a lot about beaches and the other islands of Puerto Rico, so let's finally get back to the main island, and specifically Old San Juan. We definitely spent the most time here throughout our week because our Airbnb was less than a 5-minute drive away, and there are tons of places to eat and shop here. Old San Juan was another highlight of our trip because although it's touristy, it's lively and vibrant, and it felt like every time we went, we saw new streets, new buildings, bars, restaurants, and stores, so it was always exciting. My favorite street in San Juan was Caleta de San Juan. It's right by the church as well as the main gate of Old San Juan. But so many of the streets are so cute with all of their colorful buildings, so you can't really go wrong.
San Juan, Old San Juan. We are very happy. Old San Juan.
Another fun excursion you can take for the day is visit El Yunque National Forest, which is the only tropical rainforest park in the U.S. National Park System. I seriously look like a park ranger right now. We've made it to El Yunque National Forest. It's a national tropical rainforest park. They're just all staring at me while I vlog. Jimin, how much in advance was the reservation?
$2.
No, but how far in advance?
A month.
Okay, so a month in advance, you can book your guaranteed reservation to come into the park. So Jimin booked that for us, and it was only $2. One of the first stops is the Coca Falls viewing point. So we just kind of quickly drove by that. And then now we're at this observation tower area, and you can see a view of the forest and like the mountains here. And then they've also got a map of all the trails here. So it's kind of raining on and off, so we'll see like what kind of hiking we might do. There was a torrential downpour when we were going to the forest, which was honestly kind of scary, but otherwise it's a pretty easy 45-minute drive from San Juan. We still were able to enjoy the trails and views of the park, despite some of the views being blocked out by the rain clouds. We started our hike. We're gonna do the Mount Breton Trail. It is like a little less than a mile one way. So yeah, we wanted to do just like an easy trail, not too intense, and it looks pretty nicely paved, so I actually have no idea where this is going or what the end, reward is, but we'll find out together. And our feet already got wet.
Yep. Toes are already wet.
Working our booties.
We made it!
Yay! So beautiful!
So beautiful. So we've looked at some beaches, a bio bay, and a forest, and now we're gonna go to the mountains. The central non-coastal areas of Puerto Rico are pretty mountainous, and several areas are home to a lot of coffee farms. We decided to check out Sandra Farms located in Adjuntas, which has a tour for $30 per person. The farm was about a 2-hour drive from San Juan with some steep, winding, bumpy roads. There were some parts of the drive where I was just lifting my foot off the pedal and letting the car roll over all of the potholes. But as long as you have a car with 4-wheel drive and drive slowly and carefully, it honestly isn't too bad. The coffee farm was a great escape from the city and had some amazing views, and it was also fun to learn about the process of making coffee, as well as taste the coffee and chocolate from the farm.
Down here in Puerto Rico, Mayagüez.
Sadly, a lot of the farm was destroyed from the hurricane, so we were happy we could help keep the farm running with our tour payment and buying some coffee and chocolate as souvenirs. Before we get into the last section of this guide, which is about food, I want to take a moment to talk about this video's sponsor, which is Squarespace. If you're finding this guide helpful so far, I also have a blog post with these details, which is up on my site that I created with Squarespace. And I've been using Squarespace for years because it's easy and I'm able to create and maintain a beautiful website, whether it's for my personal blog or the podcast that I co-host. Squarespace's website design system, Fluid Engine, allows you to start with a best-in-class template and customize every design detail with drag and drop technology for desktop or mobile. Again, Squarespace is making it so easy to create a site that not only looks gorgeous, but is custom to your needs. As I mentioned, I use Squarespace for a blog and a podcast website, but you might also use it for an online store. And Squarespace has the templates and tools for selling physical, digital, and service products online. Or maybe you provide services that require appointments. You can use Squarespace to showcase your services, offer online or in-person sessions, workshops, or classes, manage your schedule, accept payments, send automatic reminders, and more. Squarespace has so many other features and tools based on your needs, so if you're interested in learning more, go to squarespace.com/kchoi for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, you can use the code kchoi to get 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Check out the details in the description box, and thank you again, Squarespace, for sponsoring this video. This last section of the guide will be focused on where we ate in San Juan. We'll go with cafes and breakfast first, starting with our favorite, Spiga. Spiga is a small cafe and bakery in Old San Juan and just has the most amazing pastries. We tried their guava roll and ham and cheese brioche roll, and then we ended up buying more to go because they were so good.
Dude, this is bomb. This tastes like guava, like actually.
This is the guava we were waiting for.
So good.
Yum. They also had a breakfast sandwich as well as egg and toast plates, which were much larger than we expected, so you could probably share the egg and toast plates and fill up more on the pastries that I mentioned instead. Cafe Don Juan was our first breakfast, which we got on the way to El Yunque National Forest, and we only went here actually because the place we were trying to go to, called Cafe Conseil, was closed, but we were pleasantly surprised. It was really roomy inside, and the food didn't take too long, which we found out later is kind of a rare thing in San Juan. More on that in a second. We all had some sandwiches, coffee, and juice, and it was a nice filling meal before our rainforest excursion. Cafe Comunion was a cute, hip spot with different toasts and egg dishes, and it was super bright and airy inside. We enjoyed the vibe, but the service was honestly a bit slow. I'm not sure if it's because it was a holiday weekend, so it was busy and understaffed, but as I mentioned, this was a trend that we saw in some other cafes and restaurants, so we just accepted it as part of island life, and we knew that we had to factor in a potential long wait time into our planning. Moving on to a couple of bars, we've got El Cafetin, which was a place that we just walked by as we were killing time before dinner in Old San Juan. And honestly, we were just drawn in by the $5 mojito sign on the street. They had different flavors like passion fruit and soursop, and I mean, at $5, you can't really go wrong, so I don't really know what else to say here. La Factoria was a place that was recommended by several people, and it's more of a craft cocktail vibe. It has this dark and moody interior. Perhaps if it were a weekend night, it would have felt more lively, but for us, it was more chill. Nothing too out of the ordinary, to be honest, in comparison to other cocktail bars I've been to, but you know, if you are looking for a little nightcap, then you can go check it out. And finally, here are a few of the restaurants that we went to for dinner. Deaverdura was one of our first dinners, and we had already read some good reviews, and then we heard some more rave reviews from a family standing outside the restaurant. So we were super excited about this one, especially because it was our first dinner on our first full day, and we were excited to try Puerto Rican food. However, at this point, we didn't know yet that service could be really slow at some establishment, so I think we ended up waiting like 45 minutes or so for our food to come out, and by the time it came out, we were so hungry that we ate it in 5 minutes and we were still hungry. They do have a variety of different Puerto Rican dishes to try, so I think if you're in the area and you have time and you're not hungry going into the restaurant, then it's a fine place to go. However, my favorite traditional Puerto Rican dinner was at Jibarito. This place was so quick. the portions were big, and I honestly think it tasted better than the other places we went to for Puerto Rican food. We got several different meat dishes with rice and beans, as well as some pina coladas because we were in Puerto Rico, so why not get a pina colada with every single meal? And finally, our last meal that we had in Puerto Rico was at Marmalade, which is a fancy restaurant with a course menu. And if you remember my Santorini vlog, we had an amazing experience with fine dining on our last night of the trip. So we wanted to look for another fine dining experience to cap off this Puerto Rico trip. Marmalade has a $145 per person course menu where you choose 5 dishes from various categories. They're known for their white bean soup with truffle, which all of us chose as one of our 5, and we enjoyed it thoroughly. I think it might have been my favorite dish there. Food overall was really good, but it was just super heavy and rich, and by the time we got to dessert, we were so stuffed we could barely breathe and we couldn't finish our food. I think if you're going to come here, come really hungry and maybe select some lighter appetizers instead of dishes that are all creamy, for example. Like literally, we didn't know how we were gonna walk to our car after dinner. We could barely move. So there is my guide for Puerto Rico, things to do, how to get around, what to eat. I'm so glad that I got to spend a week here and see so much, but there are still other areas that we didn't get to explore, like Rincon and Ponce on the west and south parts of the island. I would love to go back again someday, so if you have any recommendations, please share in the comments for me and for everyone else watching this video. I hope you found this video helpful. Happy planning, and be sure to check out my blog post as another resource. Hasta luego!